You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Welcome back, all our shoe-in fans. Thanks for joining us again. We hope things are going well for you. We hope sales are up and booming. It is the holiday season. We're in the middle of it, or maybe we're at the end of it. I don't really even know anymore because, again, I walked into the store and I saw candy for Halloween at the same time I was seeing stockings being sold. So I don't really know what time of year it is anymore. It's all, it's a holiday every day, hopefully. If you're a good, positive person and maybe you just have that in your heart every single day, and that's a wonderful thing. But for me, I'm a little confused. But happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, etc. Matt, I feel like the same way we see all the churn that's happening with these sales, right? I mean, like Black Friday's a whole month now. It's like Black November, I guess. I don't really know. But coming out of that into December, I feel like with the supply chain issues, with the consumer changes, with the economic changes, it feels like folks in the C-suite are basically in front of this large nuclear reactor and they're turning dials one way and it's causing a reaction another way. They got to turn another dial, and it's a constant going across the whole dial of moving levers up and down and tweaking here and there. And there's no cruise control anymore with our industry.
No, you nailed it, man. I have visions of Homer Simpson at this point, but you nailed it, man. The retail sales for footwear are just all over the place. Demand is super high. Product is scarce. Consumers have a ton of cash, and there's only one person I can think of to kind of help us navigate through this and understand better about where the consumer sits, particularly the cool consumers, right? Because as I introduce this person, people understand. But Mario Gallione, who is the president of Journeys, has joined Shoe In Show. Mario, we want to welcome you to the program. Thanks for joining us during the holiday season 2021.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here. I'm not sure I can follow up what you guys were discussing much better.
We'll give it a shot.
My wife says that a lot, actually.
We'll give it a shot. What I've told most people whenever I've discussed what things have been like the last year and a half or so, it's like living in dog years. That's what it's felt like. It's only been a year and a half or so since all this nonsense started, but
yeah,
it sure has felt like 8 or 10 years have gone by.
Yeah, that's for certain. Well, out of the gate, Mario, how has the supply chain chaos impacted your access to product? Do you have all the product you need for the consumer during the holiday season?
Well, I mean, obviously, as you guys were saying, the answer to that, simple answer to that is no. I think the whole industry, and not just the footwear industry, is suffering from the same things. Whether you go to a local restaurant in your town or whatever, and you're wondering why, it takes an hour and a half to get waited on because they only have 3 people working the floor. So no, we don't. But I guess misery loves company in that case. We're all kind of in the same battle. I think like any other issue, even though this one's at greater magnitude, coming out of a pandemic, it's a constant battle of monitoring and adjusting to your plans on a daily basis. You get. Sometimes you get good news, and a lot of times lately you've been getting bad news that something that's not going to come in. Fortunately, at Journeys, we've lived through. Now we're in our 4th decade. This is our 35th year being around, and we've navigated through some other crazy times. Nothing as crazy as this, but I think for us anyway, part of it is that we just have a model that allows an extreme amount of flexibility. We have a lot of built-in diversity in all areas of the business, whether you're talking about our workforce from the very beginning being very diverse, or whether you're talking about what we offer the consumer at retail, has always been very diverse. So it's allowed us to kind of, ebb and flow, shuck and jive, whatever analogy you come up with what's going on, with what the consumer demand is, so that we're not just dependent on one thing. I think that's where we sit today right now, being fortunate that we're not dependent on one thing, and we're very diversified, and that's always a good thing when you're talking about being in the fashion business.
Yeah, I'm more of a jiver than a shucker, to be honest with you, if I think about it. But I think that's the whole thing, right? We talk about agility so much in the supply chain that we're at the point now where we got to talk about agility at retail, and used to it be products king. And then you have some scarcity issues, and, so it's really interesting what, Matt had mentioned earlier, and we see it in the data. Consumers are sitting on, as a whole economy, we've got trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines in current accounts. That's, more money we've ever had. And we also have these really interesting terms, and we've talked about this in the past on the show, but like how there's payment terms now for everything. You buy a pair of shoes or clothing or a backpack, you can pay over 4 months, right? Not even layaway. You can get the product in hand, which is amazing. But as you guys kind of, like take a look at this new landscape of consumers, you guys are in malls. You also have obviously robust e-com. How do you look at mall traffic over the holidays and going forward? And then how do you look at your footprint over the next several years of balancing brick and mortar, our storefronts and malls with kind of e-commerce growth?
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I guess I would have to say though first that I'm a jiver because I'm originally from Chicago. But I've lived in Tennessee now more of my adult life than I did in Chicago. So I'm no longer a damn Yankee. I'm actually a Southerner. So
Right.
I'll try to attack that. I think that what we've figured out over the course of this last year and a half, with dealing with our store fleet having to shut down and then reopen and have restrictions, and whether people felt safe to go out and shop or whatever. I think first of all, for Journeys, again, our business model is our core consumer is the teen, right. and even now the kid, both within the Journey store and our standalone kid store. So I don't want to say they think they're, like superheroes, but they kind of think like they're, immune to, pun intended, to what's going on out there. And they're just going to do what they want to do. And as soon as they had the opportunity to come back into the stores, they did. I will say, though, that I think what we're seeing is while mall traffic is down and we've had traffic, shopper track counters now for the last half a dozen years and monitor it, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever. And obviously seeing our traffic down, not too bad to pre-pandemic levels. I think what we're seeing, guys, is that we have a more qualified shopper today. The mall used to be the place where the kid would go to hang out for social gathering. They really would. I mean, you'd see packs of kids in the mall, and that was where they went to hang out. Parents would drop them off at the mall, and they went and hung out with their friends for the day. I think there's a lot less of that. Kids have obviously other opportunities now. So many online opportunities, whether it's gaming or social media, all the different things that kids do today. So I think what we're seeing is that the customer that is braving the elements today and wanting to go out and shop in physical retail is a more qualified shopper or buyer, if you will. So like what you've been, I think, hearing from a lot of people is that you've seen conversion be up. Yeah. And that's obviously the case with us. So I think that's the way we're seeing the physical retail. And then on the online side, it's no secret. Most people now start their journey today with shopping in some way, shape, or form on their phone or online from their tablet or their desktop. They have all the information they need at their fingertips. So they kind of qualify what they're looking for online. And in many cases, if they are an online shopper, or in the case when we were shut down from the pandemic, they had to shop us online. They went there and found the experience to be good. And when they could go shop in the stores again, they did. But I think that's the other part. They're empowered because of all they can do online first. So whether they decide to shop with us online or come and see us in our stores or both. I think, where we sit at the end of the day is that we're showing a very unified commerce approach. That's my new phrase to the team, and I probably borrowed it from somebody else. Like it a lot better than the omni-channel phrase.
Amen.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh my God. Got to hear omni-channel one more time. All I can think of as omni-channel is like the hotel. Like that's all I can think of.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. We've been saying that the online world and the physical world are two sides of the same coin. They're separate, but they're inseparable. They need each other, and the customer just has that level of expectation today. So whether we do business with them online or they start their journey online and show up on their stores, we need to show them that very unified experience, and those work well together. And that's why we're calling it that. So I know that's a long answer, and I can tend to babble on, but I think that by and large, we think that what's happening today is that the consumer is just more qualified and more empowered, and they're making their decisions kind of ahead of time. And when they do finally come and see us in the store or online, they know what they want, and obviously our job to get them what they want the way they want it. So
now, Mario, the big thing out there right now is the I word, right? Inflation. And it's prevalent. It was supposed to be transitory. It's not going to be transitory. It kind of continues to be an issue. The devil's advocate to that, right? Because we don't want to see prices drive so far out of whack with demand that demand just crumbles. But the devil's advocate right now is that retailers, we've talked to a lot of different executives in the industry, but on the retail side, the promotional activity that was out there, we had a decade of promotional activity in a lot of our retail outlets. That's gone. You have scarcity, which is product scarcity, which is not always a bad thing, coupled with high demand and the cash that Andy talked about. Are you doing anything promotional right now, or is this kind of a golden era of capturing full price sales? No matter how long this lasts or when the bottom will drop out, it seems like we're in this sweet spot, even if it's called inflation in a broader sense.
Well, I too am worried about inflation, because at some point, whether the consumer has a lot of cash or not, if they're paying more for everything, whether it's gas or their rent or their groceries or going out or entertainment or a pair of shoes or a t-shirt, eventually it's going to catch up to them, and they're not going to be able to afford everything the way they did before. Having said that, when you started talking, I kind of was going like this, because one of our secret. No, it's not diabolical. It was just like really good. We have always had a full price model at Journeys. We actually hate promotions, quite honestly. We have more fights internally about should we have a coupon on a catalog or not, or do we need to take a discount or not. We've always been a full price retailer because we're about fashion and we're about teens. Right. Our brands love us so much because they can count on us being that full price, holding the line to make sure that their brand is shown in the most approachable is the wrong word, but the best light. Let's just say it that way. Mm-hmm. So this is actually fed right into what we believe. We're actually glad. I think this has been a great. While the pandemic has brought a lot of negative stuff, it's brought a lot of positive stuff. I think the nonsense of all the promotion out there needed to end, and we need to get back to retailing 101, and that is get the customer what they want at the right time, at the right price, in the right environment, with all the right metrics, and you'll be just fine. We've always prided ourselves on using our promotional dollars to get rid of things that didn't sell, right? We're not perfect. We're not going to buy everything right. You'll buy 10 shoes and 2 are going to be absolute dogs. 6 or 7 are going to be, pretty good. And 2 or 3, maybe my math equal 12, but it's okay.
We'll go with it.
2 or 3 are going to be gangbusters. Well, what we've seen through the pandemic is that it's made everything be a lot better. Even the dogs don't bark as much as they normally would. And it's a lot easier to move through them. So I love the position that we're in now, or this is right in our sweet spot of being a full price retailer.
That's awesome. Looking forward in 2022, I think, what's been interesting, and you guys probably see this too, but you best laid plans, right? I think years past we would do like an annual outlay and say, here's our strategy over the next year, here's what we're thinking about. And maybe even before the pandemic, we were like, all right, we need to do it biannually or quarterly or monthly at this point. Now, obviously there's comps, but I feel like strategy is changing more than ever as you keep adapting and changing in our industry across the board at all retailers. So I guess I'm wondering, as you look at 2022 and, and you look at inflation and you look at a tight labor market and you look at sales, like what's your outlook for 2022? Are we continuing to see growth? Are we going to see a leveling out of hopefully prices and product, and also around the labor market? Are we going to see people come back in and things kind of stabilize? What's your view for 22 overall for the industry and what you're seeing?
Well, I'm probably a little weird in this respect, guys, where, I think I try to tune out a lot of what we have to deal with. I'll use an old analogy that maybe you guys have heard this one, but do you know why your grandmother used to cut off the ends of the roast before she put it in the oven?
Size of the oven. Yep.
Well, or that's what it took. The roast was bigger than what the pan was, and that was
right.
the only thing in there. I think we could probably cut off the ends on both ends of the spectrum of a lot of things that we deal with today, and we would be just fine. I don't want to say that the truth just always lies in the middle, but I think some of what we're hearing is and have to deal with is always hyped up, so that kind of creates a little bit of hysteria. Again, for Journeys, we deal with the teen consumer who thinks they're kind of defiant, or they think that they can kind of do what they want. I'll give you a really good example, then I'll try to answer your question. When the pandemic first started and we were, starting to hear the thoughts of that we might have to close or whatever was going on, we had a picture sent in to one of our store managers, sent it in, and we were trying to institute some procedural things to help them be safe in the store, everything like that. So one of our managers took a cloth out of a pair of Tom's shoes, where Tom's puts their flag in there in a cloth instead of plastic or paper. She put the Tom's cloth around her face as a bandana mask. In one hand, she had a receipt that she just made like a triple header sale. In the other hand, she had a can of Lysol. And it was like, I knew we were going to be okay when I saw that. How long it was going to take for us to be okay, but I knew that the Journeys employee was going to kind of find a way, and that's kind of the example, because a lot of our employees are our customers. We employ a lot of teens and young adults. So I think, having said that, I think again we feel kind of an empowerment at Journeys. First of all, that diversity in our mix is also diversity of price. You guys know a lot of the brands that we carry, and I won't get into the specific brands, but some of our brands are in the sweet spot of affordability and fashion at the same time. So that's a kind of a twin-headed monster, if you will, in terms of being able to deal with inflationary times, because you have fashion items that kids like, and they're at affordable prices that mom and dad can deal with. So I think that's one thing about why we feel so good about the business going forward, is that we can ebb and flow with that. And what will naturally happen is fashion will start to dictate what the consumer wants. And if it's at those lower price points, that fits into the sweet spot of where we're at. I think the other thing is, from the overall supply chain thing, is that, there's no secret. Brands are empowered to also do what they want, go more direct to consumer or whatever. But brands usually only mean they kind of have one lane. There's only a few brands that have the flexibility or the range, if you will, of being able to appeal to a very broad range of consumers. Our collection of brands gives us that diversity that, again, we can ebb and flow with. And brands today still are looking for retail partners that present their brands in a way that they're proud of. And I'm pretty proud of the fact of the way we partner with the brands that we do business with. So I think that also gives us a level of insulation to any either kind of inflationary issues or any supply chain issues.
Yeah, you're well positioned. And I don't know how you stay on top of the coolness factor. You know, we're all kind of elevated in age, and with time that maybe that kind of gets out of our grasp. But, you know, with Jim Estepa before you and now you at the helm, how do you, I want to ask this question, I have one more after that, but how do you kind of stay in tune? How do your buyers stay in tune with what's hot and what those teenagers are looking for? What do you rely on?
Well, it's a bunch of things. I think, you know, first and foremost, you know, Jim used to always say we're in the people business. We just happen to sell shoes. I don't think that was his original phrase. I think he borrowed it from some other people, but we borrow everything from everyone.
Right,
anyway.
Of course.
Nonetheless, he instilled that in us, and I think we carry that on. We have a lot of continuity in our organization in every area of the business, from either my direct leadership team with time and tenure with the business, growing up in the business. We are a promote from within kind of company. So I don't know what the number is, guys, but I want to still say we're in the 60 to 70% range of the people who run the company in every area grew up on the sales floor, probably as a part. And we've been doing that ever since. We believe in that. We believe it's vital for people to have an understanding of what retail's like, to know what it is to miss a size 9 on the sales floor on a Saturday when you know you got to pay your rent. So we think that's part of it. So that continuity, that ownership, and that understanding of coming from the retail, being born in retail, if you will, on the sales floor is it's invaluable. I know there's not that many companies that still believe in that. So I think that's part of our secret sauce. And then our relationship with our brands. I mean, our buyers are, you know, doing everything they can working with our brands, but obviously studying what's going on with fashion. Obviously, things like social media today and the way we market to the consumer gives us a leg up on, gives everybody really a leg up on what kids want. So we're very active there and always in tune with what the kids are into these days, whether it's gaming or you know, doing the latest TikTok video or whatever. You know, everybody's kind of focused on, you know, where the consumer is at and what their likes are. You take an example of what the pandemic brought. So, I mean, look at some of the fashion trends that took place when the pandemic hit, where kids weren't going to school and people weren't going to work, right? We were doing everything. We were doing glamour shots from the chest up, and it didn't really matter what you were wearing below. So they might have been wearing a pair of slides or slippers or a pair of you know, fashion athletic shoes or just whatever they wanted to rock at home, or no shoes for that matter, and still do the job. So, you know, that obviously was something that we had to follow as well too. But again, very simply, short answer: our people, our time and tenure, they grew up on the sales floor. They're in tune with trends and all those other areas, like I mentioned, and great relationships with our brands.
That's awesome. Well, I'll just let you know, if you ever need a cool person to go out to your store, I'm free to go do some sales for you. And I'm sure if I just showed up, the sales alone would just boom. We could do a press release. We have
Anytime.
come out. We do a whole thing around that, right? Matt's laughing, but I'm free.
I have a feeling that if that happened, what would happen to you is the same thing that happens to me when I go on the sales floor. They just, Mario, we got this.
Exactly right.
we know you know how to sell shoes, but we got this.
Well, that's what you want, right? Like, that's
right,
awesome.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, Mario, we really appreciate it. We wish you guys the best holiday sales in 2022. And, you know, we'll have you come back when we figure out this metaverse that Lord Zuckerberg's creating and how that's going to change how we sell shoes in the future, right?
That's a good one. That's we've just started to use that here as well too. I mean, that's a whole dynamic in the social world and the gaming world that our kid, like it or not, you know, they were already spending a lot of time, you know, on screens before the pandemic, and it's probably an unhealthy amount of time now, but nonetheless, I think that's part of what's here to stay. And, you know, it's where, you know, I know we plan on showing up there. So
awesome. That's awesome. I mean, during the pandemic, our producer Blake and myself went into several different virtual reality kind of interactive areas, and just were exploring around to see what it was. And obviously when you got someone like Facebook willing to put billion towards building that, there's going to be something. I don't think we know what it is yet, right? We know that Microsoft's doing something, Apple's doing something, Google. So all these people are doing something and building something. But I think if you put billions and billions towards something, the way we think of the internet and digital, it's just going to be a lot different. And that's cool that you guys are thinking about that and playing around with that. Maybe the next show we'll actually do it in one of those. We'll all put VR headsets on and do a shoe and show from the metaverse. And
at a Journeys in the metaverse.
Yeah, and then we'll get Andy Gilbert involved and see if he can get into the metaverse. We'll see if he's cool enough to get in. And
I'm not sure we can get him to be cool enough, quite honestly.
He's not here to defend himself. So.
Oh, that's all right. We love him.
No, he's not, but I always tell him how uncool he is anyway, but it's
that's hilarious. Man. Well, Mario, again, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some insights into what's happening from the ground across the country. And again, wish you guys well. Folks, this is Shoe and Show. It's the Footwear Industry's podcast. We focus on the business side of the footwear industry, all the different supply chain issues to retail issues to consumer shifts and changes, product issues, labor issues, all the above, anything that impacts the footwear industry. We talk about those things. It's almost like a conversation around a coffee table where we're just having casual conversations to help spread best practices and new ideas to help everybody do things a little bit differently and hopefully a lot better to strengthen our industry. We appreciate you listening. You can find our full catalog of over 300 shows now. We've been doing this for over 5 years on shoeandshow.com. If you have ideas for shows that we should bring up conversations around or guests, please drop us a note. On the main page of shoeandshow.com, on the left side, there's a little voice note. You click on that voice note, and using your computer or phone, you can actually leave us a voice note that we can listen to and respond to. We appreciate you listening. We wish you all the best. We hope that you get candy in your stocking and not coal. But some of you guys may get coal, and that's just the way it is. That's what I tell my kids. So
coal stuck in the supply chain issues too, by the way.
That's true.
No coal for anybody.
Apparently it's all being used in China. It's all used up. So we don't, I guess everybody gets a pass this year. Hopefully that doesn't increase the naughtiness that you might not get any, but nevertheless, again, thanks for listening. And until next time, Shoein is out.
Shoein has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.